Keaton Wagner just went 5th overall in the NBA draft. But what if I told you next year's team could have 5 guys in total drafted?
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Sports Network the #1 sports network in the world. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Join all the action at FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a home run this season. My name is Sonny Verma, your host here at Locked On, where, of course, I'm going to give you daily coverage of the beloved. So if you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and make sure you like this particular video. And there's a lot to like. Jonathan Wasserman, one of the GOATs, I would call, when it comes to NBA draft coverage. He writes for Bleacher Report, came up with his new mock draft about 24 hours ago. And what was notable, and I appreciate listener Dave for sending me this. By the way, I tell you guys this all the time. If you have content ideas or something you want me to speak on, feel free to send me an email at talkillini@gmail.com. I always appreciate those. He's the one who sent me this mock draft. He's like, hey, what do you think? And I'm like, you know what? I will tell you what I think on tomorrow's episode. So here I am. I want to go through this with you. I'm not going to go through the whole mock draft because I really want you to go read Jonathan's article. Again, they do great work there, and they've got both the top 2 rounds. What I will do is we'll just kind of recap the Illini here. And as you can see, the highest Illinois that he had was drafted at number 17, Quentin Coleman going to the Grizzlies. And then we have a little gap. So we don't have a top 5 pick like we had last year in Keaton Wagner. But once we go down to the second round, if you take a look, and again, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the article. If you're one of my dear friends on the audio side, I'm doing my best to let you know what I'm looking at. Stefan Vaaks shows up at number 38. And then we have Zvonimir Ivišić go at number 44. And then we have Andrej Stojaković at number 52. Very impressive. 4 Illini players drafted in the same NBA draft. If this were to happen, what are your thoughts, right? Are there any surprises that aren't there? Of course there's a surprise. David Mirković is not on that list. But regardless, I think we have to still give credit to the other guys that he did list. And let me kind of give you my impressions on it. Stefan Vaaks, I literally just talked about on yesterday's episode. I feel like I was in early on Stefan, and now a lot of other people are kind of catching up on Vaaks and also kind of saying that they're very high on him and his skill set and how he could fit in the Illini system. Shout out to my everydayers. You can vouch for me. I really liked his game tape as soon as I saw that Illinois was interested in him. I'll be honest, 38 is low for me. That's how much I value Stefan. I think he's got great size. I think we've seen his skill set when it comes to just scoring. We watched that first look video that Illinois dropped. I believe it was on Tuesday evening. And I think at 38, and by the way, listed as small forward, which is interesting as well. I mean, I guess you can list him as a small forward now because he's kind of positionless. What he played for Providence is kind of up in the air. We haven't really seen him take on a different role at Illinois yet because we don't know. Brad Underwood hasn't disclosed who's going to be the point guard, who's going to be the shooting guard. Now, granted, I do think he's going to be one of the guard positions, but there is a scenario out there. There's a world out there where Stefan Vaaks is running the point at 6'7", 200 plus pounds. And all of a sudden, his value here certainly shoots up. We saw it happen with Kasparas Jakushonis. It's very rare you can get a guy who's 6'6" and to be able to play point guard. I mean, we just saw it with Keaton Wagner. Why am I even going 2 years ago to Kasparas? We saw it with Keaton Wagner, 6'5", played the point guard position. Now, is he a natural point guard at the NBA level? I don't think so. Probably not, but we're going to find out. Los Angeles Clippers fans are going to find out. Stefan Vaaks, do I think he's a natural point guard at the NBA level? Probably not. But do I think he's a small forward? Do I think a small forward is his most natural spot? I don't. But to me, as I mentioned, if with David Mirković out for a significant amount of time, and again, we don't really have any updates, there's a real chance that Stefan Vaaks takes on a lot of that load to be the primary scorer and the go-to guy early in the season while we wait for David to get healthy. And then who knows after that what happens beyond that, right? Once David is ready to come in, he's not going to be 100% right away. But then hopefully, obviously for Illini fans, the ideal scenario is David does get fully healthy 100%. And then at that point, you're going to have a Stefan Vaaks who's kind of used to being the alpha guy. And then at that point, you might have two alpha guys. So for me, 38 for Stefan Vaaks would actually be a very big disappointment. I think this is a kid who's absolutely capable of going maybe right around the 20 range. I don't know if he's got the athleticism, and he's got so many question marks on the defensive side that I'd be hesitant to put him any higher than that. But if he can become even maybe an average defender, I do think that there's a chance in a year he could be a pick right around 20. I mean, look, if things don't work out the way I foresee and he stays 2 years, then I think he can vault even higher than number 20. But I do think 38 for Stefan Vaaks is rather low. Number 44 for Zvonimir Ivišić is interesting because I think that's probably high for him, but I can see it happen. I've talked about there's not a lot of players in college basketball who have his skill set and his size, and the NBA craves it. The NBA I mean, look, that's not by accident either. Brad Underwood, Tyler Underwood, they're doing all of this on purpose. They know they're scouting the NBA. They see where the game is going, and that's what they're trying to incorporate in Champaign. The NBA, just like all the other professional sports, is always like 2-3 years ahead of what the college level is at. So Brad Underwood's always consistently trying to be ahead of the curve, and I think our roster is kind of a glimpse at that. But Zvonimir Ivišić, if he ends up going to number 44, right here it says to the Philadelphia 76ers, I think that would be meaning that Zvonimir had a very good year. The type of year that we think he can have if he reaches his potential, right? If he becomes a shot blocking guy who at the beginning of last year, it looked like he was one of the, 20, 30 best centers in all of college basketball. And then he just kind of slumped a little bit at the end. But again, the defensive prowess was always there. It's all about whether he can kind of gain the confidence. And now with him and Tomislav, who I'll talk about in a little bit, are for sure going to be in their final years in college basketball. Maybe they're really locked in and they're ready to go. And, again, if he gets drafted at number 44, I think that Zvonimir basically had his ceiling of a season. Next up, we have Andrej Stojaković at 52. And I think this one, they kind of got just about right. I hope it's higher. And Andre, if you're in those workouts and you're working on that 3-point shot and that 3-point shot looks like it can consistently go in, I promise you it will go higher. He's got the size. He's a solid defender, and I think he can be a solid defender at the NBA level. The only thing he's lacking is the thing that arguably NBA GMs covet most. Just be able to make that outside shot. He can attack the rim as well as anybody in all of college basketball. He's got the cojones too, right? We've seen it in big moments. He's not afraid of the ball. Give him the ball, get out of the way. He can attack the rim, and more often than not, he can either get you a bucket or he can get fouled trying to do it. But he obviously tested the NBA waters last year, didn't quite get the numbers that he wanted to get. And I think a lot of that has to do with his 3-point shooting. But I'm telling you, if that 3-point shot at any point gets developed, I do think that he can go up this list. How high? I don't know. I don't think he's got star potential at the next level, but I certainly do think he can be a very valuable role player. Obviously, he's got the name pedigree, and that's going to play into it a little bit. But beyond that, 4 guys in the first round. Again, am I surprised by any of them? Yeah, kind of. Zvonimir Ivišić, that one kind of surprised me. Quentin Coleman, I don't think that can be a surprise to anybody. Quentin Coleman could be, I probably should have started off talking about Quentin. I kind of just glossed over him. Quentin Coleman, could he be third straight year of a one and done that Illinois produces? I absolutely think so. No one has had, at this point, even if you don't think so, you'd be a fool to say he can't. Right? With the year that he's had, just take a look at articles from 1 calendar year ago, where he was ranked and where he was at when it comes to just a high school basketball level. And then look how far he shot up in just a single year. In that 1 year, I don't think anyone has touched him when it comes to this, a single year trajectory, to the point where he ended up being a top 15 recruit. one of the highest recruits that Illinois has gotten in recent memory. Can he go 18? Sure. I think, unfortunately for him, he doesn't quite have Keaton Wahlberg's size. And that's kind of why he's a little lower. That's why he's not really talked about as a lottery pick. But if he continues scoring the way he can, stealing the ball the way that we think he can, he definitely, for him, I feel like he needs more time with Fletch. And I think time with Fletch is absolutely going to help. And so that's why I don't hate at all the idea of him becoming a 2 and done. But look, with the way Brad Underwood and Tyler Underwood develop freshmen, I would not be shocked to see Quentin Coleman in the NBA draft next year. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make sure your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in the game. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with every day's games. Whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league, every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction. Speaking of predictions, as of this recording, Cubs 4 games behind Milwaukee. Take a look at the odds. I'm not saying do it, but I'm just saying take a look at the odds. That NL Central is not yet over. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. And welcome back. We were going over Jonathan Wasserman's way too early preview of the 2027 NBA draft. And the 4 guys he listed were Quentin Coleman, Stefan Vaaks, Andrej Stojaković, and Zvonimir Ivišić. Now, there's 2 notable names, at least one for sure notable name, that was not on that list, and that's David Mirković. David Mirković not drafted in the next. Now, you could say, hey, maybe it's because he's underclassman, but you know what? David and Stefan Vaaks are both sophomores going into next year. So with David not being on this list, what could that mean? There's a couple different scenarios. I think the number one scenario that people don't want to hear, or at least hope that's not going to be the case, is that David never really recovers from this injury that everyone's being very secretive of right now. I'm not saying it doesn't recover at all, but let's just say that it takes up a significant amount of next season to the point where even if he does come back, he kind of only shows up at 60 to 80%. And then he just isn't fully healthy enough in his sophomore year that he almost has to come back his junior year, which, by the way, obviously nobody wants for next year. But can you imagine the junior season David Mirković, who is kind of just hell-bent on proving doubters wrong? That part would be great for Illini fans. But, there's other scenarios where maybe David just decided, he doesn't have the skill set when it comes to what NBA teams are looking for. And that's reality. If we're being honest here, there's not a bigger Mirković fan than myself. I was very early in my praise for David in the sense where, I keep saying David. Okay, David, in the sense where I have talked about, and my everydayers in here can vouch for me, that I think David's going to end up with a better college basketball career than Morez Johnson Jr., the guy he replaced. David came in at a time where a lot of Illini fans were understandably emotional when Morez decided to transfer out to Michigan. Now, Morez ended up winning a national championship, so you can't say that he made the wrong decision or that he, quote-unquote, lost. But I don't think you can make the argument that Illinois lost either, because David had a great freshman season. He was better as a freshman than Morez was at Illinois. And I truly do think that David has the potential to be an all Big Ten, if not All-American, at the end of his sophomore year. And who benefits from that? It's going to be Illinois. But there is an argument, and a legitimate argument, that his skill set, his lack of athleticism, makes him more of a star at the collegiate level than it does the NBA level. Now, we've heard whispers, and it's not we've heard whispers. Well, I've heard whispers, and I've whispered it out to you guys, that David is locked in this offseason. Of course, he got hurt, so that goes without saying. But even before that, he skipped going to go play internationally for his country. He wanted to stay in Champaign. And more than anything else, he wanted to work with Adam Fletcher, the strength and conditioning coach. Why? Because he knows what the perceived weaknesses are. He knows that he needs to be able to get a little quicker. He knows he needs to maybe be able to run a little faster. Or what did Brad Underwood say? He could barely jump over a water bottle last year. David understands that he needs to improve on those things. And there's no better strength and conditioning coach in the country than the one that is employed by the Fighting Illini. I say it all the time. Adam Fletcher is a cheat code. But is there a scenario out there where we haven't seen it, right? And so because we haven't seen it, we have to at least acknowledge the idea that maybe Mirk isn't NBA quality when it comes to that sort of skill set. Look, he plays with a super high IQ, and the way I envision this next year's team, with essentially you can have him running point for almost half the game, I think there's a lot to like. And there are archetypes of Mirković in the NBA already. I'm not going to keep naming them because they set such high expectations, but I'm sure you guys know who I'm talking about. I'm just saying I'm trying to find the reasoning behind Jonathan Wasserman, why he would not include Mirković on this list. What would this mean for next year's team? It could mean trouble, but it could maybe not mean trouble, in the sense where if David's not on this list, it's not a good thing if he's not on the list because of the injury. But it could be a good thing because, well, that means 4 other guys really stepped it up to the point where they got recognized and scouted to be NBA players. And those guys were drafted in the first round. Speaking of one of the guys who got drafted in the first round, Zvonimir Ivišić, note his brother, Tomislav Ivišić, was not drafted. And that might come as a surprise to some. Tomislav is the starter after all, and Zvonimir Ivišić, his brother, is actually his backup. But if we're being honest here, I think when it comes to the college game, Tomislav's game is better suited for it. But when it comes to what the NBA is looking for, the type of skill, the type of size, even the athletic traits, I do think that the Zvonimir is the right call there. And am I a little surprised that Tomislav wasn't drafted at all? Not really. I do hope that he can have a real big bounce back year. It looked like after his first season in Champaign that he absolutely had NBA potential. Then over the offseason last year, or at least going into last year, he had his tonsils removed, and it felt like he just never was fully healthy. Folks in the Talk Illini Discord always joked around that he was running around like he had cement in his boots, and it was hard to argue that. He didn't look like the player he did the year previous. But Tomislav, just like Zvonimir, well, he knows that this is his last opportunity to make it to the NBA. We know he wants to. We know he wants to because a year ago, right around this time, he could not stop talking about it. He could not stop talking about, hey, I have a 2-year plan at Illinois. Well, year 2 just didn't work out the way he wanted it to work out. And so, again, maybe he's going to come back more committed. Again, he has a nice, he's got the size the NBA likes. He's not as quick or as athletic as a lot of NBA teams might want, but I think he's skilled enough to be at least looked at the end, as one of the last few picks in the NBA draft. It's hard. You can't teach size, right? And again, Tomislav, when he wants to, he can keep a defense honest with his 3-point shot. He's got a pretty decent post up game, which you're just not going to see much at Illinois. But once he starts working out with at the NBA draft camps, I think teams will be able to see that. But those were the 2 biggest, I would say, notable names that Jonathan Wasserman decided to exclude when it comes to getting drafted in the NBA next year. Did I find that surprising? Yeah. Mirković in particular, I did find it surprising. Am I saying it's a huge error and that there's no way that could be the case? No. As much as I love Mirk, and I truly do think that he could go down as in my Mount Rushmore of favorite Illini of all time, I do see a scenario where he just ends up being one of the best college basketball players that this program has ever had, but maybe not quite at the level of his game's not quite at the level that would suit the NBA. And so I don't think it's crazy. Would I put him in my mock draft? Certainly. If you take a look at what, the other 4, I think David is clearly going to have a bigger impact than any of them, except for maybe Stefan Vaaks, depending on how he performs early in the season when David is going to be injured. But either way, I'm really curious on your guys' thoughts. Does David mean to be, or should he be on this list? What about Tomislav Ivišić? Is there anyone else on this team that maybe I'm overlooking, Jonathan is overlooking? I'd love to hear your thoughts, please. And by the way, shout out again to Dave for sending me this article. Since 1986, the game has been creating classic college hats that fans are proud to wear. Whether you're an alum, current student, season ticket holder, or simply someone who never misses a game, a great college hat is more than just apparel. It's a way to represent your school wherever you go. This year, the game is celebrating its 40th anniversary by giving fans a chance to save on some of their most iconic college hats. If you've been thinking about replacing an old favorite or adding a new one to your collection, now is the perfect time. Just go ahead, close your eyes. Maybe you have it on right now. Think about your favorite hat. Just think about how it represents your favorite school, some of your favorite team. And when you go out, it's just a conversation piece. The game offers that same timeless college style. With hundreds of officially licensed college hats to choose from, you'll find the perfect fit for game day and every day. Don't miss this chance to celebrate 40 years of the game with 40% off your entire order. Visit thegamecaps.com and use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's thegamecaps.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Celebrate 40 years of the game with 40% off. But don't wait. This anniversary offer won't last forever. And welcome back. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you share this video, please. It was my goal to hit 5,000 subs before we kick off for the football season, but now we're only like 3+ weeks away or something like that. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get to 5,000 unless every one of you maybe share it with another Illini fan in your life who may not be familiar with Locked On Illini. As you guys know, I do this coverage every single day, and I did it during the offseason when there wasn't much to talk about. And I certainly am going to be doing it during the season, while football season right around the corner. But that also doesn't mean I'm not going to be talking about basketball as well. So again, if you're a former alum, maybe send it to a former roommate, who, again, not everyone in the world wants to talk Illini sports each and every day. Stop bothering your Uncle Bob and, maybe join the Talk Illini Discord. The link is in the description. You can join almost 500 of your fellow Illini fans to discuss whatever everyday topics. Just consider that. Before I let you go, I did want to mention Keaton Wagler's NBA 2K rating came out. Some of you, I know some of the younger audience are all over that. He comes in rated as a 75, which is going to be third when it comes to the rookies in his class. Asia Devonstadt, Darren Peterson, and Cameron Boozer all come in with 79. Caleb Wilson is second with a 77, which, by the way, Caleb, I know, plays NBA 2K, so I love the fact that he sees this, and he's not going to like the fact that he's ranked under the other three. And then comes Keaton Wagler, who had a 75 also with Darius Acuff Jr., which, again, there's a debate between the two players who would go higher. Keaton Wagler ended up going higher. I'm curious on your guys' thoughts. I mean, with Keaton in particular, I'm fascinated with Keaton. And I've talked about this. There was so much discourse on Wagler when it comes to the NBA draft. There's, I guess, a surprising amount of people that just didn't like his game or didn't see it fit at the NBA level. And I get it. But to me, it was all coming from people who just didn't watch Keaton Wagler play basketball. Because if you watched his high school tape, it would have been very easy to say, yeah, it's just not going to translate to the college basketball level until he started playing, and it did. He just has an X factor to him where, he manages his game around the speed of the game. He lets the game come to him. Sure, he's not going to dunk the ball even once all season long. Hopefully he does it in the NBA. That's one thing I'm really hoping for. He gets that one dunk out of the way really early in the season so we can just kind of let that go. But yeah, in an NBA draft camp, he's not going to be the fastest guy, or he's not going to have the highest elevation, none of that kind of stuff. But you know what he's really good at? it's playing basketball. And so I'm curious to see how he ends up doing this upcoming season with the Clippers. Now, the Clippers are obviously rebuilding. They've got Kawhi Leonard either gone or not gone. I don't think anyone understands what's going on with that whole nonsense of a trade. Obviously, there's a lot of drama with the NBA investigating Kawhi Leonard. And so I have no idea what team he's going to play for. Pretty certain it's not going to be the Clippers. And they've essentially feel comfortable to hand the keys to Keaton, because it's not like they didn't know they were going to make this trade during the NBA draft. They were well aware. And so they thought the guy who they decided, hey, who can give us the best chance to be the next leader on the next iteration of the team that can make the playoffs and maybe compete for an NBA championship? And they think it's Quentin Wagler. And you know what? I think it's Quentin Wagler too. I'm really excited to see him. I know a lot of Illini fans are as well, just because of the discourse of there's some people who watch college basketball who know Quentin can play. There's others who think that Keaton's awards, his statistics, his performance at Purdue, him being an All-American, Big Ten Freshman of the Year, all Big Ten, all of that are simply good enough for the college level, but that it won't translate to the NBA. For me, it's just, I don't know how you could not watch his games, and maybe it's because of the fact that we watched him live and we got to see him grow as a player. You guys remember early December, he wasn't one of the 3 most important players on the team. I was there at the United Center when Illinois lost to Alabama, and Keaton just had an okay game. The keys weren't his yet, but then we saw what happened. And essentially, I don't know if it was the game after that or maybe 2 games beyond that, Brad Underwood, Tyler Underwood, they're like, hey, this kid's killing it in practice. Let's just go ahead, put the ball in his hands, and let's see what happens. And what happens is the Illinois team was one of the best teams in the Big Ten Conference, one of the best teams, certainly, in all of the NCAA at that point. They made it to the Final Four, something we haven't done in so many years. And a lot of that was on the backs of a freshman who was ranked in the 200s. Just maybe a year prior to that. So shout out to Brad Underwood, shout out to Tyler Underwood, but most importantly, shout out to Quentin Wagler. The 75 rating, I get it. I mean, if AJ and the top 3 guys are only 79, I guess 75 does make sense, but it's going to be interesting for me to observe. I don't really play video games all that often. I'm really bad at them. So I won't be paying attention personally, but it's going to be interesting to see whether Keaton can have a strong start to the season and slowly get his rating up to, let's just say, the 80s, right? If you get into the low 80s, I think Modest from the Chicago Bulls, he's in the low 80s right now. If you get it to that level, I think you had a somewhat successful rookie season, notwithstanding. All right. That's going to just about wrap it up for this edition of Locked On. Again, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you send this to any of your friends, and make sure you yourself are subscribed. You may not realize this, that just because I show up on your timeline every single time I release a new episode, but you may not be subscribed. Trust me, it really does help my channel grow, and it costs absolutely nothing to you. All right, that's going to wrap things up for now. Until next time, ILL. Love you guys.